What's wrong with this? Have you ever bought something knowing that it looked too good to be true, but you couldn't help yourself? You just went ahead and bought it and you're like, well, you know what? Maybe, who knows? And then it gets there and it's actually really good and it wasn't too good to be true. How's it going, everybody? I'm Rollshambo, the connoisseur and collector of all things sharp and shiny. And this knife made me have that exact same situation. You see, I looked at the pictures online. In fact, I did it in a live stream, which if you haven't checked out my live streams yet, I go live every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Make sure to join us. Anyways, I looked at it and I thought in my head was, it's this price because it's probably not that good. It probably looks good. They probably did something fidgety with the materials and the quality is probably not that good. That's the only way they could really afford to sell it for this price, right? And then it came in and here's the thing. This is barely a first impressions because I've had it now long enough to. What's wrong with it? It should not be this price. It should be much more expensive. Let me show you what I mean. Have you ever thought that maybe knives just cost way too damn much? You look online, you see something and it's cool, and then you're like, oh crap, it, you know, costs hundreds of dollars, and because I have to pay for gas and food and a roof over my head and clothing, I can't afford what I want, and only people who are rich get that. If you've ever had that thought, might I show you this knife? This is the TwoSun TS296, and you already know my penchant for disliking knives that are named after letters and numbers. It's just something that I'm not a huge fan of, but I'm willing to make an exception on this one, and I'm going to go over why. So this came in the mail, and if you don't know what this is, I looked at this on my live stream a couple weeks ago, and a lot of people really like this company. They really like TwoSun. Now, TwoSun is a Chinese company. This is not American made. This is made in Asia. So buyer beware. If that's a turnoff for you, I totally get it. Not for you. However, for me, I looked at this knife online and I thought it's way too good to be true. Knives that look like this with these kinds of materials don't cost this amount. And if you're wondering what that amount is, it's $79.99 at White Mountain Knives. Or if you use one of the very many creator discount codes out there, you can get it for 10% off, and it's like, you know, 72 bucks with free shipping, you know, 72 bucks. So we're talking about $72 here. Let's go over the specs real quick. Overall, we're looking at just shy of 8 1/4 inches an overall length. The blade is just under 3.5 inches. It's got 14 C28 for the blade steel, which is a wonderful blade steel, full titanium handle scales, and that includes titanium backspacer and milled titanium pocket clip. It is a frame lock with a single-sided captive pivot. Hallelujah. All of the hardware is T8. It's got this beautiful milling pattern here on the handle scales, which helps it not be, you know, too slick in the hands. And it's a RIHA design, or RIA design. I'm not really sure how you say that. It's R-I-H-E. I think it's RIA. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. It weighs 5.93 ounces according to White Mountain Knives. And let's go ahead and test that theory, since I know that, you know, retailers don't always get it right. Let's see how close they are. On the scale of truth, it is 5.96, you know, close enough for government work on that one. So yeah, what do you get when you order it? Well, you get this TwoSun box and it says $296. I'm not sure why they can't just commit to naming it something, but there you go. When it does come in, it comes in these plastic bags, and I did have to wipe a really decent amount of oil off of both the blade and the handle scales. So I'm not sure if they do that just for shipping purposes to make sure that everything's copacetic. But yeah, it was a little bit greasy when it came in. No big deal. I'd rather have it oiled than dry, and that's, you know, It's a good rule of thumb for life. Everything is better when it's lubricated. Moving on, if you wanted to kind of get a comparison, here it is up against another knife that's gray. It's up against the Spyderco Shaman. This is the Blade Ops exclusive. As you can see, very close in overall length to a Shaman. How about up against something, if you were looking more on the budget side of things, how about something up against this Bestekman Ronin? It's going to be a little bit longer than the Ronin. Blade profile is going to be about the same. And by the way, if you're interested in the Ronin, which is a fantastic knife, make sure you check out my video I just did on it. We'll go ahead and put it up in the corner. So yeah, it's a full-size knife. This knife is not a small knife, and it's also not a light knife by most people's consideration. I don't have a problem with knives that weigh 5, 6, 7 ounces. I like my knives overbuilt. I do. I like feeling the weight. The thing about weight in knives is that if it's too heavy, it can feel cheap. And if it's too light, it can also feel cheap. So finding that sweet spot is hard because it really depends on a lot of people's personal preferences. You know, with all that being said, again, I do not mind a heavier knife, and by all consideration, this is. And one of the reasons why is that if you look on the inside of these handle scales, you'll notice that there is no internal milling on those handle scales. That part does kind of baffle me because you see this beautiful milled out pattern here on the handle scales, and it makes me wonder, like, they went this far. Why didn't they just do some weight relieving on the inside? And maybe they didn't care, maybe they didn't want to spend the extra time doing it. I don't know, but the pocket clip is milled, the handle scales are milled, everything's nicely chamfered. I'm not noticing any hot spots at all on this. Something that I do notice is a great amount of balance. This thing balances really well right where you'd place your index finger, and that means that you can do, you know, some dumb things with it like this. And if you saw my videos fidgeting with this thing, fidget factor is not just opening and closing the knife. People are really missing out when they think that, oh, it's just this. And by the way, there is only one way to open this knife, and that is via flipper tab. The flipper itself feels good. You know, I don't feel like I'm going to be failing that. I mean, we'll try to fail it real quick. Can we fail it with a light press? Not really. The D10 on there is nice and crisp. When we look at the blade itself, there is some billboarding. It says 14C28N TS296 RIA design, and on the other side it says TwoSun. Now you'll notice that this blade is in fact a satin finish, and it collects fingerprints really easily, but it does shine up nicely when you clean it. So yeah, there we go. That looks good. It has a Japanese Tanto style blade with a nice deep hollow grind here on one side, and then a flat grind here at the tip. And it's got some nice extra bevels at the top, a little bit of a swedge here, a way big of a swedge there, and no jimping on the spine. Now, you know how I feel about that. I'll say this, I don't mind that this knife doesn't have jimping, and you might be going, what? You just cried me a river about the Beyond.edc Riverwolf not having jimping. What gives? Why are you okay with their not having jimping on this one? Well, for starters, the Beyond.edc Riverwolf is $300, okay? They both use the same titanium on the handle scales, but this one is $80, $72 if you use the discount codes that are readily available out there. Also, the Riverwolf has a spot to choke up here on the blade. This one does not. This knife is not encouraging you to get closer to that edge. It says, you know what, here's the flipper tab. Let your finger stop there. And that's fine. I mean, would I have appreciated some jimping here at the top? Sure. That would have definitely interrupted the design on this due to that extra swedge here at the top. It's almost a Bowie style point. This is what I would consider a drop point Tanto-esque. It's, you know what, it's creative. Unlike the Beyond.edc Riverwolf, they took risks with this design. Look at how many different surfaces is just on the blade itself. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 surfaces on just one side of the blade. That's nuts. Now let's take a look at these handle scales. These handle scales, if you look closely on here, and I'm not sure if the camera's doing it justice, you can see the milling lines right where they started doing this intricate pattern, this kind of honeycomb-esque pattern, which I actually really like. Now, when I looked at the reviews online, a lot of people were talking about how this feels a little sharp. I mean, it's not necessarily super rounded out over here, but what it does do is it offers grip to a handle scale that is otherwise going to be slick. You could tell that they were paying attention to detail because right there you have a single-sided captive pivot, which I'm a big fan of. You've got a titanium lock bar with over travel stop and a steel lock bar interface, which is good. That means that this knife is in the 21st century. We're not doing titanium on steel for those makers out there who are. Come on, man. Furthermore, you got a lanyard hold right here, which is not interrupted by that pocket clip, and it is somewhat deep carry. The pocket clip ends right about there, so you have a little bit sticking out of the pocket. Not a big deal, generally speaking. And then we got this backspacer. Now, I would have really appreciated if the backspacer had come up to say, I don't know, like right there, but it didn't. It's right here, but it still works well, and I do prefer that over barrel spacers, so I'm willing to forgive that. Now, when we talk about the pocket clip kind of weirded me out at first because I'm not used to seeing pocket clips go only on the lock bar. I would have preferred to have seen it go right here and act as a secondary over travel stop between the lock bar and the rest of the handle scale, which is a design that I'm used to seeing. I'm not mad at it. I was curious as to whether or not that would affect the ability to release the lock bar. I'm happy to say that that is not a problem whatsoever. Now, with all that being said, I do have to mention one little negative on here, and it is a little negative. This design, while it does offer grip and it is really attractive, it makes it a bit more difficult to put this in your pocket. It's not a big deal. I just slide it over a little bit and it pops right in. It's this little edge right here on this pattern that kind of tends to stick on the pants, but again, it's not bad. A little bit of adjustment goes a long way. Now, that is possibly the only complaint that I have so far. As far as, you know, other complaints with quality, we'll have to wait to find out. Remember, we're still waiting to find out what's wrong with it. So for example, check this out. The centering is perfect. The lockup is what I would call about 30%. That's pretty spot on. The grind, the edge on here is good. Yeah, it's very bitey, and from tip to tail, you know, it's not going to leave you hanging in that department. Here I am recording a video talking about how sharp a knife is, and I've run out of paper in my office. So forgive me. I will do a cutting test with this when I do my Grailer garbage review on here. But let me tell you first and foremost, it has no issue cutting whatsoever. As far as design language is concerned, I do really appreciate the hand rubbed flat on the main flat of the blade. I guess you could call it the main flat. And being 14C28N, I love 14C28N. It's a great user steel. It's not hard to sharpen. It's fairly rust resistant. It holds a good edge for a decent amount of time. It's just a great all-around user steel. I would love it if we could normalize the use of 14C28N over the use of D2. That would be fantastic. If you agree with me, let me know in the comment section down below. But here's the thing. This knife is batting so far above. The value proposition for this knife is insane. Let me give you an example. This costs $80. For $70 more, you can get you a Demko AD 20.5 with Grivery handle scales, Oz 10A steel, and it feels cheap. People buy it for the lock. Now, before you AD 20.5 lovers crash into my comments saying things like,
well, you can get it in titanium.
Yes, you can. And you'll spend $300 to do that. And that's my point, is that you can get 3V in titanium on a Demko AD 20.5 for $300. And in all honesty, as far as user steels are concerned, for $80, you could get this with, you know, 14C28N, full titanium, and that's a lot of titanium, guys, with milled titanium pocket clip. Like, the value proposition here is insanity. The bevel is even on both sides. I'm not sure, you know, who quality controls this stuff for TwoSun, you know, if they have their own manufacturing plant or if they, you know, tag team in with one of the other major Asian manufacturers. But the bevels on here are fantastic. The edge is, for the money, is really good. It's a very consistent edge bevel. The hollow grind is well done and well polished. I love how you can see the different directions that these hand rubbed finishes go in. Like that's just beautiful. So this is really, really easy to take apart. That's fantastic. You have one pivot screw here, one screw here on the pocket clip, and another screw on the other side, which holds everything together. That's really nice. It means that if you want to take it apart, switch the bearings out, lube the bearings, clean out the inside, whatever you want to do, it's going to be nice and easy to take care of. And I got to say that this really makes me question a lot of manufacturers, especially those who have their knives made in China, because at the end of the day, if TwoSun can do this for, you know, 80 bucks, call it 72 with the discount code, why are we accepting higher price tags on other knives? I just don't get it. You know, and before you say, well, I mean smaller companies, but you know what, with all of these knives being made roughly in the same place, the excuses start to mean less and less. And especially when we're talking about getting designs with really nice 3D milled handle scales and pocket clips, blade shapes that make sense and are not only useful but also look cool, and knives like this that take risks. I love this knife. So far, so good. Everything is just lining up really, really nicely. The fit and finish on here is really decent. The only real complaint that I have is that going in and out of the pocket is a little bit rough, but that's the price you pay to actually have some grip on, you know, titanium handle scales. So I'm just going to throw that out there. Overall, I'm very pleased with this, and I'm excited to see how well this ranks on my leaderboard. And it makes me also want to try out more TwoSun knives, because so far so good. I think that they're doing a phenomenal job, and I'm really excited to see where this goes the more TwoSuns I check out. Guys, if you like this video, make sure that you give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, boo-hoo, there's a button for you too. And if you want to check out more of my content, make sure you hit subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. I'm Rollshambo. I'll catch you on the flip side.